It's time for the three most violent letters in combat sports, the UFC. The cage is about to get us locked in, so fighters, ready. First up, it's time to make our fight picks for this month. No pay-per-view, but plenty of fight nights. Well then, okay, bet. And the two fight nights we're predicting the co-main event and main event for our UFC fight night, Imamov versus Borralho, and UFC fight night, Lopez versus Silva. So, for Imamov versus Borralho, it's live from Paris this Saturday, the 6th of September, with the main card starting at 9 p.m. SAST. And this one decides the future of the middleweight division, with the man who sent Izzy into semi-retirement taking on the backup fighter for this past DDP versus Khamzat fight. And in the co-main event, it's Benoit Saint-Denis versus Mauricio Rufy at lightweight. Our prediction, Rufy to win by TKO or knockout before it gets to the final round. And why? BSD has fought higher level competition but suffered 2 losses last year. Rufy is on the rise and part of the Fighting Nerds team, and his quick style means he's putting BSD down early. And in the main event, Nasruddin Imamov versus Chao Borralho at middleweight. And our prediction, Borralho to win inside of 2 rounds via submission. And why? The Brazilian fighter that formed Fighting Nerds has been consistently winning by any means necessary. But in the aftermath of UFC 319 and being the backup fighter, he definitely wanted to push the gas in this one. And his elite grappling stylistically gives him an edge over Imamov, who is far more one-dimensional. And despite an early finish against Izzy that some say was an early stoppage, he hasn't proved yet that he's got what it takes. Let's get Borralho to win and be able to pull guard on the champ next. And the second fight of the fight night of the month is Lopez versus Silva, aka UFC Noche 3, live from Texas on Sunday the 14th of September. That's next weekend, with the main card starting at midnight Saturday heading into Sunday. This main event shapes up what's coming next in the featherweight division, with another member of the rising Fighting Nerds team who's undefeated in the UFC facing the man who just went to war and came up short against Volk for the vacant 145-pound title. In the co-main event, it's Rob Font versus Raul Rojas Jr. at bantamweight, and our prediction, Rosas to win by TKO in the 2nd or 3rd round. And why? Font is pushing 40 and almost double Rosas' age, plus his last win was split decision, and he's only had 2 decision wins following back-to-back losses, whereas Rosas is fucking 20 and came back from his single loss at such an early age. I think he's gonna show Rob the power of Chihuahuas. And in the main event, it's Diego Lopez versus Gene Silva at featherweight, and our prediction, Silva to win via unanimous decision. Why? Lopez has fought higher ranked opponents, but he's taken too much damage and lost his edge. That being said, it's not going to be an easy job for the Fighting Nerd to get Diego out of there, because man's got a chin of rock. Though I can see Silva getting a late knockout or even slipping an early sub, but I still would say, to be safe, the Fighting Nerd takes it in the distance by outstriking and out-grappling Lopez. And the fights that the UFC should be making, not just why, but how. Someone needs to get Dana to see this, but we still just want to know. What's Hunter's number? Now, September is all about girls want girls, and we're fixing the issues in the women's side of the UFC that will get everyone more hyped to watch them. This week, we're giving you 2 title fights that Hunter should make, but he still hasn't given us his number. So, the first title fight we make, which just got announced, it's kind of pisses me off, but we're still going to talk about it, is Zhang Weili versus Valentina Shevchenko for the women's flyweight title. This one was just announced, even though it's been speculated for months. This is Weili moving up to challenge for a second title and the pound for pound number 1 and number 2 going head to head. Brings that big fight feel, and thanks to the crossover in division, either way this goes, it brings eyes for the magnitude of the fight, plus gives room for new talent to rise too. Champ versus champ, let's fucking go. And the second title fight we'd make in the females division, Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes for the women's bantamweight title. Again, this fight has been agreed upon, but not shit has been said. So this is just us pushing the UFC to announce this shit and make it official. Look, former team members, the GOAT and former double champ taking on the fighter who was being heralded as the champ from before she even signed with the UFC. This is box office. This is once in a lifetime. This is what the female side of the UFC needs. Nunes wins, she'll probably retire and vacate, leaving space for new contenders to rise. And if Kayla wins, then I want to see her versus Shevchenko at bantamweight and see the 2 greatest female fighters face off. This is the one that should be official already, so get it done. Weili versus Shevchenko, Kayla versus Nunes. Tell me those aren't the 2 biggest fights in women's MMA history. What's Hunter's number? Of course, what happens inside that octagon is absolute and definitive. However, now is when we go back for all the if, buts, and maybes. And September's theme is Bloody Bones. John Jones' violent and chaotic, drama-filled run from winning the 205 title back in early 2011 at UFC 128 through multiple incidents and getting stripped of his light heavyweight belt until he regained the championship back for the second time at the end of 2018 at UFC 232, all while remaining undefeated inside of the octagon. To start this next chapter off, we have to ask the question of what if, and this week's what if Jones kept his nose to the grindstone? Back in April 2015, John Jones beat DC in their first fight, which was later ruled a no contest. And why? A failed drug test for booger sugar a month prior. Now here's the thing, what does that have to do with the fight? That shit is out of your system quick and has no lasting benefit either. But what was the impact? Instead of John Jones' official record being 29 wins and 1 DQ, it's now 28 and 1 and 1. So if Jones hadn't taken the drugs, would it have been better for him? Well, in the fight with DC fight, in the DC fight, probably not. But overall, this was the start of his downward spiral outside of the octagon. And perhaps if he had been focused instead of partying, he would have been comparable to the clean sheet of Khabib and undeniably the GOAT. But guess what? Despite his antics, Bones is still undefeated. And whether he comes back or not, regardless of these blemishes or not, he's still top 2 of all time. And with all his title fights racked up, it's difficult to say that he's number 2 anyway.